Are you ready to be inspired, equipped, challenged, but encouraged to move from where you are in life right now to that place you know you are destined to be? Join me, Robin May, in the Intentional Living Room. Hello, I'm Robin May, and welcome back to Intentional Living with life coach Robin May. Sisters, I really think I am about to start singing Although We've Come to the End of the Road. Y'all, this is so bittersweet for me. This time together with you every week has been incredible, and I so hate to see it end. But I am also very excited about this episode because one of my personal sheroes is in the living room today. Let me tell you something. I am going to be very surprised if you are not familiar with my girlfriend, Valerie Burton. But if you are not familiar with her, girl, go ahead and grab your journal, close the door to your office or your bedroom, grab you some hot tea, and get ready to be inspired. I can't hardly wait to start this conversation with Valerie. But first, remember, we continue this conversation even when the cameras stop rolling. So make sure you are following all of our social media sites for the after show commentary. And don't forget to invite your family and friends to join us. This journey is better with girlfriends. Let's go. Sisters, I am so excited to welcome my friend Valerie Burton to the living room. Valerie is a best-selling author, speaker, and life coach. She is dedicated to helping people get unstuck and be unstoppable in every area of life. She is the founder of the Coaching and Positive Psychology Institute, which I am a graduate of. And most importantly, she is a wife, mom, and she is my friend. Valerie, welcome to the living room.
Thank you, Robin.
I'm so excited to have you here. Like, I am on 10. I want you to share quickly. Do you remember how we met?
I do.
Okay, tell my sisters how we met. It's so cool.
So I was having dinner with my cousin Quincy,
yes,
and your husband Lee knows Quincy, and they started talking, and Quincy introduced us, and then after a few minutes, your husband was like, wait a minute, I think I was on your website last week.
Yes.
My wife was showing me your website last
absolutely.
week, and so that's how we ended up meeting.
Absolutely. My husband knew that I low-key stalked your website all the time. I used to call you all the time. You know this is a big deal, my local Oprah. And so we met and we built a friendship, and I'm so grateful for it, and I'm so grateful you're in the living room. First, I want you to share with the sisters a little bit about how you began to tap into your purpose, how you knew what you were called to do. Take us on that journey so that they can catch up with your life.
I was running a PR firm. I've always been very entrepreneurial, so I'd started my own business in Dallas when I was pretty young, like 24 when I started that business. But I was good at it, but I wasn't passionate about it, and I had started praying, like, what am I here for? What impact am I supposed to make? And I literally had an epiphany one day. It was July of '99. I remember it very clearly. I was at an NABJ convention, journalism convention, and I had stepped over to the Barnes & Noble, and I just felt like God suddenly just revealed that day, your purpose is inspiring women to live more fulfilling lives. You'll do it through writing and speaking.
Wait a minute.
You
were standing in the Barnes & Noble.
I wanted to, like, tell somebody, but I didn't think they'd understand the significance of the moment. I mean, it was really, I just knew. And I went back to my hotel room, I wrote it down. And then I thought, what do I do with this? And it was only about 3 weeks later I started writing the first book. Now, this wasn't my first attempt. It was actually my third attempt at writing a book.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay. I had tried writing a book about 4 years before that. The year before, I'd actually gotten a book deal with a small publisher that ended up falling through because the publisher had financial issues. And I think the reason I didn't finish those books is because I didn't yet know my purpose.
Yes.
I knew I was supposed to write, and I had inklings about that even when I was in grad school at Florida A&M. I remember one day just suddenly thinking, you're supposed to write books. This is how you're going to have a family and a career that I would be able to, control more of my time. And so when I had that epiphany, when I started writing, the words just flowed from the tip of my pen from the first book.
I love that.
And so that's how I started. I self-published the first book, and then about sometime the following year, Random House picked up that book, and I've kept writing ever since.
So I want to dive into your brand new book, but first, you said something that we have to go back to, because I think the sisters will really learn something from this. You said you were good at what you were doing, but you weren't passionate about it. Talk a little bit about that, because there's some sisters out there who are killing it as a principal of a high school, or they might be really good working in an executive position, but they're not passionate about it. Tell me why the connection is important.
Well, I think passion and purpose fuel perseverance, because things get hard. And sometimes you don't feel like continuing forward.
Yeah.
But if you know it's what you were created for, like I don't feel like there are other options really. This is what God created me to do. So the perseverance is, it's not that it's not hard, but I understand there's a reason that I'm doing what I'm doing. If you don't have that, when things get difficult, it's a lot easier to just give up. To say this isn't worth it. Because truthfully, it's not worth it, because there's not a purpose behind it. You have to find that thing that you were meant to be doing. And this isn't always career related. You have to know what your purpose is, because whether it's in your relationships or your finances, your health, your spiritual life, you are making decisions all the time. And your purpose is like a compass that gives you direction about what you should be doing.
I love that. And sisters, I got to turn and talk to you really quick. She said that passion and purpose fuels perseverance. I want you to go ahead and tweet that. Go ahead and tweet it right now. All right, Val, let's dive into your brand new book. Share with everybody the title of it and what the inspiration was behind it.
Yeah, the book is called It's About Time. The Art of Choosing the Meaningful Over the Urgent. This book has changed my life. Like, my books normally come from a place of, okay, I've overcome this and I'm sharing. This was a book I needed. So I wrote everyone else the book that I needed. My husband and I really, with our careers, my husband's a pilot, so he travels quite a bit, and then I travel sometimes with speaking and so forth, and we have 3 children. So it's a lot to manage. And we really began thinking, is there a different way to do things? Is there a more intentional way? And I think in the world that we live in today, and this really becomes kind of the bigger picture of the book, we have so many what I call false urgencies. Constantly. The digital distractions are relentless, and it's created that way to get not only our attention, but our time, because our time is worth money. Advertisers pay websites based on, time on site. How long are people staying on your site? So even if you don't realize it, there are forces at work that are trying to take more and more of your time. And so much has changed over the course of history that those of us living today are living in a way that no human beings have ever lived. And we have to have a set of tools that we can use and principles that we live by that allow us to make sure that we're not doing the urgent stuff, but we're doing the meaningful.
One of the things you said in your book that really stood out to me is you said this: living with no breathing room has become the norm for a large segment of the population. And then you added this, and this is what struck me. You said that reality is a threat to our well-being and happiness. And so many of us think that what we're doing is pursuing well-being and happiness. So can you talk about that a little bit when you said we're living with no breathing room?
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
We have sat at our breakfast spot and talked about this so many times.
You're running from one thing to the next, saying yes to way too much, spending too much time on social media, online shopping. A lot of times what we're doing is we're looking for relief from all of the pressure. But the truth is that you have control to make choices that work for you, but you're going to have to spend a lot more energy being intentional about that. And that's not lost on me. So one of the things I talk about in the book is we need a lot more willpower today than previous generations, because we have to say no to a lot more in order to get to the things that we need to say yes to. But it's worth it to pause and to say, what's meaningful, what's not? What do I need to take out of my calendar? What is it that no longer serves me in this season? There are things that you do that have become habit. And they made sense 3 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even last year. You don't need to keep doing them. And so you have to stop and reflect so you can be intentional.
I love the word intentional. And I love what you said, because even your own life, my own life, it was different when I only had one child and now I have three. It was different when you were a single woman.
Okay, let me just point something
Yes.
out. You have three children. You know how hard that is.
Yes.
You got to ease into your three children,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And then what happened to you, Val?
So I was single, I married, my husband already had two kids, so I have two bonus daughters,
Yes.
right? So they were already 6 and 9 when we got married. So, and then a year and a half later, my son came along. So I went from being single
Yes.
with no children,
traveling around, speaking everywhere,
to married with 3 children in a year and a half. And I
Whirlwind.
didn't immediately grasp what you're saying, like what that looks like and how that's different.
Yes.
And so it took a couple of things that just happened where I realized I can't, like even writing books. There's
Yes.
no way I would have 12 books written if I had already had 3 kids at 30 or 35.
Wait, I just have to stop and talk to my sisters right there. One of the things you and I talk about a lot is being able to prioritize and customize your own life. And so if I'm looking at your life, you are able to say, I've written 13 books, but I didn't have 3 children and a husband at that time. So listen, this conversation is going so good. Y'all, I'm going to keep my sister here for another conversation. So stay right here with me. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to do my intentional coaching moment, and we'll be right back with Valerie Burton. It's time for my ICM, the intentional coaching moment. It is during this time I get to talk directly to you, so let's chat. Throughout this intentional living journey, my goal has been to help you truly see the power and necessity of your intentions. Let me say that again. My goal has been for you to understand the power and the necessity of your intentions. You can't simply think your way into the life you desire. You must think and do. You must be intentional about the pursuit. You must be intentional about navigating past those fears. You have to be intentional about identifying your strengths and even those areas of growth. And that leads me into your assignment for this week. I want you to get a deeper understanding of you. Listen, sisters, and I want you to lean in for this one. You do not know how others are experiencing you. Now, you may know your intentions. You may know how you hope you are showing up in this world, but you do not know how others are experiencing you. And while I want to be clear, we can't live our lives based on the uncertainty of other people's opinions. We can't ignore the energy that we give to others. So with that in mind, I want you to do a little interview of your own. In my book, Prioritizing Your Purpose, I encourage the reader to interview people in their life as a tool to identify possible strengths that may help them realize what they want to do. Well, I want you to do the same thing, but you're going to take your interview a bit further. I want you to ask a few specific people the following questions. Question 1, what do you see as my best personality characteristic? Question 2, what would you say is my greatest area of growth? Question 3, if you could choose the perfect purpose path for me, what would it be? Question 4, what would you say is the one thing that I could do to be the best me that I can be? Now, I don't want you to go around all willy-nilly asking just anybody. There are 4 specific people I want you to reach out to. 1, a parent or a parental figure that you trust, a trusted friend, a trusted colleague or coworker, and then lastly, if you have one, your husband or significant other. Now, why such a variety of people? Well, because as you know, we show up differently in different situations. While the core of who you are is the same, you reveal different parts of you based on the environment that you are in. Now, before you rush off to ask these questions, let me give you some ground rules. Number 1, if you noticed, I specified that you ask people that you trust. This exercise is not for you to get beat up emotionally or to be devalued. It's to help you gain insight into yourself from those who have your best interests at heart. Number 2, give the person you are interviewing permission to be honest with you. Many times people will be concerned that there will be repercussions for sharing what they really feel. Let them know you really want their insight. And then finally, this exercise is for you to gain insight into you. not for you to tell them about themselves. So resist the urge to respond with, well, you need to tell yourself that. Keep a humble and open heart. Now, I want you to take this super seriously. Take notes on what is shared with you. If the person is open, ask a few follow-up questions for clarity. Now, once you've finished your interviews, I want you to set some time apart, maybe about an hour, to process the information you gathered. You can ask yourself questions such as, was there a common theme from the different interviews? What did you feel as you received the feedback? And did you learn anything new about yourself that you didn't know before? Once you've processed the information, there is one final question I want you to answer, and here it is. Is there something I want to do differently as a result of this feedback? Whew, now that may be the toughest ICM yet, but I know you're up for it. This process is truly enlightening, and I believe it will yield you great results on your journey of intentional living. To learn more about my book, Prioritizing Your Purpose, visit robinmayonline.com. That's it for today's ICM. Let's return to our conversation with Valerie. She is amazing, and she has so much more to share. Welcome back to the living room, and we're going to continue my conversation with my sister friend Valerie. All right, Valerie, this is one of my exciting parts about the book. You talked about this aha moment that you and your husband had, and y'all started doing these experiments so that you could figure out how you needed to shift your schedule to honor what really mattered most. That was a really good summary of the book right there. And so one of the things you did is you cut back on some of your hours so that you could prioritize differently. What would you say to my sisters who are sitting in their own living room and they just feel like they don't have the privilege or the opportunity to cut back on their hours, or they feel like the demands on their life are so great and they're not flexible? What would you say to that sister?
So first of all, let me say that even though as a business owner I did have that flexibility, it started with just a what if. What if I didn't have to work every single day?
Yes.
A lot of times we don't open our minds up to other possibilities. And what ended up happening is I was working every other day, but we ended up having a better year. I ended up generating more revenue for the company because I was very focused
on what you did
on the days that I was working, because I knew I couldn't take the next day off unless I got a whole lot more done. So it's really important if you feel stuck, first of all, and sometimes we are in situations. I remember when my mother, had a brain aneurysm and was in the hospital for 2 months and lost a lot of abilities that she had, and I moved into her home to help her and my brother, who's 20 years younger, who was only in 3rd grade at the time. And my head was spinning. I was lucky to feel like I had time to go take a shower because I was, administering medical treatments and stuff like that. But here's the thing. I wasn't asking for help.
Wow.
Or I was insisting that I didn't have help when in fact I did, if I'd let go of my pride and be willing to ask for it.
Yes.
So a lot of times we have to acknowledge where we are, the season that we're in, and we have to acknowledge our own needs. And so if you are the kind of person like me, I'm very optimistic.
Yes.
Oh no, I can do all of this.
Yes.
Well, even if you can, that doesn't mean that you should.
Yes.
You need help. You need rest. Where can you reach out? What could you shift around? And so it really is important to challenge yourself in that area, to be willing to ask for help, and sometimes to shift your expectations, because sometimes we want to keep our expectations higher than what we're able to
than our capacity. Than our capacity, yes.
And if you insist on that expectation, you're going to continually be disappointed and stressed. And so sometimes we have to shift our expectations, not permanently, but temporarily, so that we can handle what we're dealing with and recognize it's different from our norm.
Absolutely. And I love that you said, let's just start with asking what if. It even takes courage just to say what if. And I love that you said changing your expectations, because so many of us, if we're honest, we're chasing an expectation that was given to us from someone else. Like it wasn't even our
We're looking
own
at what we think everybody else's life looks like, and you don't know.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter. What matters is, what is your life right now? What do you need right now? What's meaningful for you?
Absolutely. Well, another thing that you said in the book that made me literally yell out loud, because I'm just a little bit dramatic, but you talked about this concept of core vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Now, what I love about that is it talks about, or how I normally describe it is, all of us have things about us that are really amazing, like really areas of strength. But that same exact area of strength is also an area of growth.
Yes.
And you call that core vulnerability. So I want you to highlight one of them, and if we have time, we'll do another one. I want you to highlight this core vulnerability of perfectionism, because sisters, we know we struggle with perfectionism.
Okay, so let me explain. Your core vulnerabilities are those things that end up emotionally impacting you and keeping you from doing the meaningful over the urgent. So when you should be saying no to something and you're saying yes, even though you don't want to, oftentimes it's that core vulnerability that's leading you there. It's things like over responsibility, misplaced guilt, perfectionism, as you mentioned, overachieving. Optimism, right? So when it comes to perfectionism, first of all, perfectionism is rooted in fear. And oftentimes we talk about it like it's a badge of honor. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. When someone says that, they're really saying, I'm really great. I'm so good at things. I'm a perfectionist. But perfectionism is different from excellence. And so I call that chapter Beauty is the Beast, because there's a good side, but the beast is the bad side. The beast is the core vulnerability. So it's really wonderful to be intentional, to be excellent at what you do. But where it becomes a problem is when what you do is never, ever good enough, no matter what you've put in. And oftentimes that is rooted in not feeling good enough. It's rooted in your own insecurities. And so you have to have a standard that says this is good enough. And your good enough may be a really high standard, but at some point, you've got to let it go. I've done enough. Now I get to move on. Otherwise, you begin wasting time, and the return on that time is really insignificant.
Valerie, that is so good. And so for my sister who is watching this, that it can look good because you're checking off the boxes, you're making things happen. People on the outside are looking at you and they're thinking her things are always in line, she always has it together. But that root can be that core vulnerability that can also, because perfectionism also keeps you paralyzed and can keep you stuck. Okay, we could talk about that all day. I love that. Beauty is the beast. Okay, I love that. So when it comes to someone who is diving into this new book and they're going to get it, they're going to use it, I'm going to use it in my office with my clients, what would you say you want them to leave understanding? When they close the book, what is the bottom line message you want them to take away from it?
The most important is really a question you can use to coach yourself in moments where you're making choices about what to do with your time. And to ask yourself, is this meaningful? Or is this just urgent? And when I say urgent, I mean the false urgent, the thing that's pulling on you, the person that's pestering you, the thing that you've just always done, and so you feel like you have to get it done. Or is this meaningful? You've got to have a vision for what the meaningful looks like. And you have to have what I call key markers on that vision so that you know that you're on track. So for example, one of my key markers is watching the sunset. As a result of the experiments that Jeff and I did for this book, something very unexpected happened, which is that we moved from our home in a cul-de-sac in a subdivision that we liked with great neighbors.
That was pretty amazing.
To basically a farm. It was only a few miles from where we were. But it fulfills a dream that my husband has had around being able to fly, to have an airstrip. I had never heard of such a dream before.
I mean, you're saying it's a farm. It's in the state.
We have horses. But here's the thing. The sunsets are so beautiful. And we're out. We have neighbors, but we can see the sunsets. We didn't know that when we bought the house. The previous owner kept telling us the sunsets are great.
It's amazing,
And one of the most amazing things to me is now our children. If we forget, even my 4-year-old will lead me outside. Mommy, it's time to go look at the sunset.
And that is your key marker. Describe that. The key marker means?
It means I have stopped and I have had that moment of awe that day
Wow.
That matters to me. You may have multiple key markers. You may have a key marker of putting your children to bed, reading them a story.
Yes.
You may have a key marker that you're going to take a bubble bath every night because you know what? You have to slow down to take
Yes.
a bath.
Absolutely.
You can't do the 2-minute shower, right?
Right.
And so what are your key markers that let you know that you're choosing the meaningful over the urgent every single day?
Valerie, I've loved this conversation. As we end, we only have like a minute left. What is your overarching message to women, period? Like, you are committed to inspiring women. What is the message you want to leave with the women?
Life happens quickly. Stop putting the things off that you know are meaningful and fulfilling for you. Don't allow fear to hold you back from what you know you're meant to be doing. And I think for so many of us, we live life like it's a dress rehearsal.
Yes.
And if you refuse to let fear stop you, then you realize, this might not go the way I hoped.
Right.
But I'm going to learn something from it and keep moving forward. You can have the life that you desire if you're willing to be patient and you're willing to persevere.
Absolutely.
And you believe that it's possible. Those 3 things will take you far.
Valerie, this conversation is amazing. And one of the things I can say to everyone who is watching, you are living what you are writing. And I have been with you even as this book has done a transformation in your life. And I truly believe it's going to do a transformation in everyone's life. So I want you to make sure that you grab the book. Go to valerieburton.com to learn more about the book and all the great things that Valerie is doing. Thank you so much for being in the living room.
Thanks, Robin.
Girl. Can we just take a moment to reflect back on the last few weeks of our intentional living journey? We have covered so much. Okay, we have talked about why any of this matters in the first place. Why in the world do we need to live our lives intentionally? We explored those mental barriers or symptoms that keep us stuck. We have dissected our money mindset and learned what it takes to succeed as a woman in business. We have learned about the realities of a woman's libido, and we even did some exercises. I'm still a bit shook up from that. We have gotten tips to discover our destiny and how to navigate our careers. And we even got some insight from the fellas for our love life. And after today's conversation with my sister friend Valerie, we should officially be good to go. We should be ready once and for all to look in the mirror and tell ourselves the truth. See, we must be honest about where we are, and then we have to gather the courage to do what it takes to move closer to where we want to be. And like I told you during our very first conversation, my dear sister, it is in you. You already have within you everything you need to be everything that you were created to be. And let me pause here, because I know that sounds like a cliche. And often when we hear something all the time, its truth begins to be diminished. But the truth is the truth, even if the truth has been watered down. Because that's what happens. We begin to let life water down the fire that is burning inside of us. But we need that fire, because it is that fire that will keep you pushing forward regardless of what it tries to stand in your way. So as our time together comes to a close, I want to leave you with this one challenge. Do something. Go to therapy, invest in a life coach, change your eating habits, start exercising, go to the doctor, go back to school, just do something. Don't allow our time together to be fruitless. I want you to make a decision that you are going to do something different as a result of these conversations. And I want to hold you accountable to it. So do me a favor. I want you to post either on Facebook or Instagram the one thing you are going to do differently, and then include this hashtag, #WhenGirlsGather. Because whether it is in person or virtually, something special happens when girls gather. And we are going to encourage one another to do something different this year. Well, that's it for this episode of Living Intentional with Life Coach Robin May. I have so enjoyed our time together. I'm so excited for what's in store for you. Remember, if you aren't living with intention, you are living passively. And when you live passively, life is happening to you. You aren't making life happen, and you are way too fly for that. I'll see you soon.